Good evening from Wales, wrestling fans. I'm your host, Ben Allison, and you are watching Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast. It's a Friday. We have a lot to talk about. We're going to preview this weekend in wrestling, as we always do, but we also have to talk about this AEW Grand Slam ticket fiasco, because it is getting more and more ridiculous by the minute. And it has gotten to the point where a lot of people are asking for refunds. So should they give fans refunds? We will be discussing that. We are also going to be discussing CM Punk's comments about John Cena. Should Cena have won the Rumble? We're going to talk about it. But before we do, let me introduce today's panel. Firstly, we have the head of Opinion Shirt Wrestling Republic, Anthony Ricciardi. Anthony, how are you? And if you were Jey Uso, if you were yeeting everywhere, if you were friends with Quavo, that from an in-kayfabe perspective, who would you choose right now, Gunther or Cody Rhodes?
Well, I think considering what happened to me Monday night on Raw, the most logical choice would be Gunther. And, when you look at my former tag partner in Cody Rhodes, kind of snapping right now, considering we did the KO at the Rumble.
That's true.
So I think I'd go Gunther because he's a little bit more predictable.
At the same time, though, right, you know when they usually do these press conferences before matches, usually they're really serious. You get in your opponent's face, you argue, you do all this. What if they just, got drunk again and did another press conference drunk? Worked last time?
I don't know if they were just drunk or there might have been some other possibility
Could
involved.
have been a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But too much eating, perhaps. But also joining us today, we have a returning Jordy in the bank who's just got back from Disneyland. And Jordy, your question today is Disney related. If you had to choose any Disney character to go up against Tribal Chief Roman Reigns, who would it be and why?
Are we talking like the champion, the Tribal Chief
champion,
Roman Reigns, the heel?
Top dog.
Right. Okay. So he's a bad guy. So I don't know what. If it's the top against the top, there's only one answer. It has to be the Tribal Chief against the Tribal Cheese. It has to be Mickey Mouse himself. The pure Clash of the Titans. But this version though, this version that's on my back now. Hang on. That one. The one where he's wearing the sorcerer hat, because otherwise I don't reckon he'd stand a chance. This hat. So yeah, I reckon that could main event WrestleMania. And I've said it. If you want to reach the casuals, man, put Mickey Mouse on that Mania card.
Absolutely. Now, I don't know if this is somebody you know, Jordy, in the comments over on Instagram, but Scorpio Moon Studio has just commented, acknowledge our Tribal Chief before you said it.
That might be my wife, actually.
Right, okay. I thought you'd made this a thing now. When the Disney community, that was, a thing.
I'm trying. I am trying. I got Mickey Mouse to acknowledge me, so if I can get him to do it, everyone can.
So there we go. Disney want to post that photo I saw.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's that one. I think it's a different one. But if it was that one, once that one pops up where it says Roman Reigns like this photo, I know I've made it.
Oh,
yeah.
When WWE collaborate with Disney on a post, you take all the credit.
Yeah, 100%. I'll be the Paul Heyman. I'll be the broker in that situation.
You're the wise man.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now that we got the fun out of the way, we're gonna jump straight into things, shall we? With this ticket fiasco.
Like the rest of the show's not gonna be fun.
Yeah, now let's moan about things.
Oh gosh! Right, before we start, I want to clarify something real quickly, because I really don't like. Sean Ellis is always joking around in the comments about AEW, but in all seriousness, I don't think for a single second AEW, in fact, I pretty much know AEW had no intention for any of this mess to happen. They thought they were going to sell out a stadium show. It was going to be a huge success, and obviously it's not gone that way. Now, in case you don't know what's happened, let me fill you in. So, during this year's AEW All In Wembley Stadium, it was announced that this year's AEW Grand Slam would be, firstly, a different date compared to most Grand Slams, so which is, interesting, so you wouldn't presume it's the same thing, but secondly, it would be in Australia, and it was going to be a stadium show, a stadium with 50,000 packed fans. And understandably, a lot of people were very excited for that. But there was a couple of issues, and the main one being is it is incredibly hard to sell wrestling tickets in Australia. WWE struggled like hell the last 2 times they run stadium events there, and they've managed to, get decent turnouts, but they're not capacity. And again, they really struggle to do that. AEW doesn't have a huge viewership in Australia, so it was a weird move. But hey, you miss every shot you don't take. But they barely swung. They basically sent over to promote this event Toni Storm, who in interviews at the time was claiming she was retired, and Paul White, who was also retired. So it wasn't a great promotional job, but whatever, right? From there, they were like, okay, we're going to have to move this to an arena. It's not really selling many tickets. Okay, stuff happens. And when you move a show from a stadium to an arena, the ticket site, I think it's Ticket X or something like that, has to redistribute these tickets, right?
Yeah.
So obviously there's not as many floor seats as there previously was. Thankfully, I don't think all the floor seats had sold out. It wasn't that big of an issue. And I believe, as far as I know, everybody who previously bought floor seats still has floor seats. But the issue is, some people are, quite a few rows back, and there are now floor seats on sale for about 450 to 500 Australian dollars cheaper than what they paid for, right? When you change venue like that, you have to offer a refund. You have to do it. It is 30 minutes away. You probably already booked your accommodation. Then, it'll cost you even more money. You have to offer refunds, in my personal opinion, at that point. But here's the thing. This was still being advertised as a 4-hour show. And everybody's saying it was never a pay-per-view. They never advertised it as a pay-per-view. You are correct. They never once said it was, but they did not once say it wasn't. They were also charging seats for over $1,000 for this event too. It was a stadium show, seats for over $1,000. You'd, presume it's probably at least a big TV special, not I should say a special episode of AEW Collision as we know it is now. It is getting silly up by the day, but these fans thought they were going to get a stadium show, a 4-hour stadium show, which is presumably going to be a pay-per-view or at least pay-per-view quality. Instead, they're getting a 2-hour Collision in an arena with now everybody else getting tickets for way, way cheaper than what they paid for. I think it's undeniable that AEW should offer refunds. And the final thing I want to say on it is quickly Tony Khan's statement. Tony Khan's statement is this. Having this be a TV event has always been the plan. That's something that the network wanted. It's something that the network brought to us recently as an opportunity. I love Tony Khan. I think Tony Khan gets way too much hate. Those two sentences directly contradict each other. You cannot say that's something the network always wanted and then say it's something that the network brought to us recently. Well, it's one or the other. They either always wanted it or they brought it to you recently. Either way, it's a really bad situation. And I really feel for these fans in Australia because it's not a huge thing out there. They paid their hard-earned money. They trusted AEW with this. And I mean, they must feel like the rug was completely pulled from under them. Anthony, what's your thoughts on it all?
It's a weird situation because if you take the statement that it was always the plan, that makes it seem malicious that it was a bait and switch because you're telling us you promoted this thing as a stadium show with the intention it was just going to be a collision. Come on. Like, who are we kidding? It was never just going to be a collision, especially when you're charging that type of pricing. It's a shame. I feel bad for the fans in this situation. If you're changing it out of a stadium to an arena, you should give the fans an option to opt out and get a refund. There is card subject to change. So I understand that from the standpoint, but you're really stretching it if you're going from a 4-hour show to a 2-hour show. Card subject to change is this guy's injured, he can't wrestle, so we're putting somebody else in. Not cutting 2 hours from the show. The statement is very misleading, like you said, because it reminds me of, this was years ago. Fans were petitioning for Lucasfilm. This was before Disney bought them. They wanted the original Star Wars cut released on DVD, not the remastered ones in '97. They wanted the original ones from the '70s. And Lucasfilm responded with a letter. I remember seeing it in a documentary, and it said, the original film doesn't exist, which is complete nonsense. But anyway, they said it doesn't exist, and then proceeds at the end going, there are no plans at this time to release it. Well, if they don't exist, how do you have plans? That's what that Tony Khan statement reminds me of in this situation. You know, AEW doesn't need more bad publicity. They have a lot of it. You look at attendance and you look at TV ratings. They have gone down year after year. If WWE, which is on a hot streak, is having a hard time selling out in Australia, and that includes 2 elimination chambers being on a show, and they're still struggling, that may have been a, hey, wink, wink, dude. Like, you're not on the momentum. Maybe not be as ambitious to book a stadium, because you're going to have a hard time. Australia is notorious for being a very hard place to sell. If you're not going to offer refunds, you got to offer something to these people to make it worth it. Meet and greets, merchandise, give them something, because if you burn them now, they're going to remember that and they won't do business with you again. So it's very delicate, because you're whittling down your audience. They had 600,000 views on Dynamite this week. This is a company that had over 1 million a couple years ago. You know, the Collision against it, what was it, 197 against the Rumble? Like, you're struggling. It's not a smart move to piss off the remaining portion of your fans. And even if you're not in Australia and you see this and you see what went on here, you might be a little bit hesitant to buy tickets to your next show, because you don't know if they're going to bait and switch it. It's bad publicity. If WWE did this, this would be all over everywhere. TMZ, everybody would be covering it. AEW is lucky that they're so under the radar that the only people covering are the wrestling sites. Because anybody else, if this was WWE, you know they would be crucified over this.
Yeah, you are completely right, Anthony. I mean, yeah, like you said, you know, the viewership's going down and all that stuff obviously isn't good. But I mean, they're obviously trying and everything, right? It's not like they're not trying on their weekly shows or something. But this right here is like, obviously it's an accident, right? Like they obviously didn't have bad intention, but now they are screwing over fans. So this is the first time in AEW's history where I actually think, you know, this feels like they're actually going against the fans.
You know, it's the momentum. That's what I mean as far as the ratings. It's the momentum. So to be that ambitious to go for 50,000 when all in itself had significantly less fans than it did the first time around. So it's
still a good audience, though. To be fair,
it's still a good audience, but like the Tony Khan statement, that's almost making it sound malicious. That like we always knew, we just didn't communicate that to anybody. That makes you look worse. That you knew it wasn't going to be a pay-per-view when people believed it was going to be one. You didn't dispel it.
He was actually asked, by the way, this exact same question. I think it was 2 months ago. 2 months ago and 2 weeks
Full
ago,
Gear?
I believe it was.
It was Full Gear, wasn't it?
And I believe Full Gear. And then he said at the time, he basically just avoided the question. He said, we're talking about certain things and all this. So it's like, well, if you always knew, then you should have said then. You should have said, we don't know the details yet, but it'll likely be on TV or streaming. It won't be a pay-per-view. You should have answered that part of the question.
I did see some quote that somebody posted from that, and it's like, well, pay-per-view logistically may be a little complicated, but we'll keep you in the loop. So if you knew it wasn't going to be a pay-per-view, why didn't you just go, it's not a pay-per-view? Don't say you're looking into it and logistically it may be an issue. Like, say straight up, it's not a pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm.
I feel bad for the Australian fans. I really do. Yep. But Jordy, what do you think about this situation?
I mean, very much what you guys think. You can't defend it. There's no way to defend it. There's a way to kind of own up to it and say, like you've said, Ben, it's a mistake. Of course, I think ideally they wanted to make a bigger deal of it. They wanted to sell more tickets, of course. That's not how it's gone down. And you can't, it's almost making the fans out to be stupid in a way. I know it's not directly doing that, but in a sense, by saying, oh, well, we never said this, it's like That's just not how you conduct business to your consumer. Like, wrestling fans are loyal, particularly AEW fans are very loyal to AEW, and they will defend it when anyone says anything bad about it. And to kind of burn them fans that were so loyal, because the fans that we're talking about here are the ones that bought tickets straight away. They're the ones that are getting stung, not the ones that have held out. I might go, see how I feel closer to the time, see if ticket prices drop, because those fans are out there. But they're not the ones that are getting burnt. They're the ones that are profiting. The ones that are getting burnt are the ones that are loyal, that were, as soon as it got announced, went, right, I'll be there. I'll book accommodation. And it's not fair. It's not fair to do that to your fans. Like, I was joking about it the other day. I said it's like, it is a similar principle to me ordering a 14-inch pizza and only half of it turning up. Like, that's not what I paid for. Like, and yeah, you can say it. Look, and the thing is as well, I work in events, and not too long ago, a situation happened to me where we had an event organized. There was 150 people due to come to this event, and that was always the case. That was always the case. They knew that. A week before the event, they said, oh, that place where your 150 people were going to eat, we had an event in last night and it only fits 120 in. And it's like, hey, what? Is your restaurant shrunk? What's going on? Like, you can't drop something like that on someone so late. And I just feel bad for these consumers. Like you said, Anthony, do something. Do something. You've got the stars there. Make that, if they've paid $500, $1,000, make that $1,000 worth it. Look at the VIP WrestleMania packages that they do, where they have meet and greets, where they do a ring walk. They'll give them all this kind of experience, because they can do that. And realistically, apart from time to your superstars and maybe some staffing, the overheads won't be that much and the memories that you will give. I mean, if I was obviously when I, like I said, when Money in the Bank came to the UK, and I genuinely believe, look, All In got announced a couple of weeks after that. Roman Reigns wasn't on the card before All In got announced, and I didn't think I was going to see Roman Reigns. A couple of weeks after All In got announced, Roman Reigns ended up on the Money in the Bank card. So people say that they're not in competition. I think WWE always will recognize the AEW, but if you want to get to the height of anything in business, forget wrestling, take wrestling out of it for a second. You can't pull something like this and expect people to come back, because next time you go to Australia, they're not going to buy tickets straight away at all, because everyone will go. It's probably going to get pulled to an arena tour. We can get front row seats for a fifth of that price, so let's just wait it out. And then you'll end up cancelling the show because you'll have next to no ticket sales. So it's just frustrating to know that there's fans out there that are suffering for this. So I just hope that something comes out, and some kind of refund or some kind of compensation at least.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Can I point one thing out when we're talking about giving fans something? I just pulled this up. TNA's been recently doing this for their big shows, the ringside packages. This is just for Genesis. $5.99 for the ticket. You get a pizza party with the Hardys and Nick Nemeth, early entry for a meet and greet, a Texas barbecue with Joe Hendry, Jordan Grace, Mike Santana, and others, a backpack, a tumbler, early entry, and the commemorative chair. Like, and that is just one of the packages. Like, that's just an option. Like, if you're going to charge that for people and you kind of bait and switch this thing, give them something.
A barbecue works in Australia as well.
Yeah.
Throw a couple of shrimp on.
But I'm just giving that example. For that price, you're getting the show, you're getting additional, you're getting stuff that would help. Now, granted, there are going to be people that look at this and go, "You're just doing this to try to, sugarcoat this thing." But that would have been the smart thing.
At least it is something. I would even offer both. I would offer both, honestly. And if it was me and something like this happened, and then they were like, you can have your money back, or look, we're going to make it kind of twice your money's worth of an experience if you do come, I would be like, you know what? I appreciate it, and I'll still attend, because, like, at least you've shown me something and acknowledged the fact that, like, I was loyal to you. I gave you that money straight away. and now I've not suffered for it. You know, it just leaves a sour taste, and I hate it because wrestling is expensive at the minute. Going to see shows is expensive, and that's one thing that I would give AEW over WWE is definitely ticket prices and affordability. And for them to then do this, it's like, no, come on, you just can't. It's can't.
Awful. I mean, there's a couple of comments I want to quickly read out. Firstly, Sean Ellis saying that's a great deal in terms of the TNA thing. That is, to be honest, $5.99. You get a barbecue, you get a party. Fair play.
Should we go?
We might have to go, man. Rosario says he always says he doesn't hate AEW, dislikes Tony Khan. I don't even dislike Tony Khan. I think he gets too much hate, but this is an L for him. J Money says it's not a mistake if Tony Khan already knew that it wasn't going to be a pay-per-view. A great point on that one, but I actually don't think it's the pay-per-view to not pay-per-view part which is the real issue here. The issue is a 4-hour show to a 2-hour show. If it was a 4-hour TV special, which is a pay-per-view caliber, I don't think there's an issue there. It's the fact it's now 2 hours.
Honestly, that's the whole thing. You could have done a 4-hour show, and just one's live, or neither one's live, but it's 2 weeks worth of TV. You could have done that, or you could have
just done it as a two extra hours.
No, but I'm saying,
and quite honestly, as well, logistically, if you look at it, right, so they've changed venue, so the venue cost will be less. They will have had to pay that original venue, I imagine, some still on a cancellation fee or whatever.
Well, there is an interesting thing here. Australia, whatever it is, where it is, I think it's Perth, have paid AEW to go there.
There's the tourism thing,
right? So then you have to. So then you've got to. You have to refund half the money at least. In my head, because you're giving them half the show, and through that, your fans will appreciate it, and they'll still make plenty of profit by the sound of it.
Listen, I don't blame them changing venues. If you don't have the demand there and it'll look really bad,
their fault.
That I don't really blame them for. You should have still given them an out. The problem is you promised them 4 hours and you're cutting them in half, and you're not giving them the full money's worth, like Jordy said. So that is where I really have the problem.
And like you've said, Anthony, it isn't, and you, Ben, Australia isn't easy. If WWE struggle with 2 elimination chambers and 1 Rhea Ripley, then you are struggling. Like Rhea's a huge part of that her main event in that show as well. And it's just, and I feel for them. I hope something happens. I don't know if it will. But if any of you guys watching are one of them people, let us know how you feel, because I'm intrigued.
I have been told, phone up the ticket people and they might put you in a better seat.
They'll say, I'm sorry.
Rumor which is going round. If you phone the ticket people and really thingy them on the phone, they might give you better seats.
You know what? Why do I have a feeling?
You shouldn't have to do that. No, you shouldn't have to do that. You should get offered it.
Why do I have a feeling if Tony Khan goes out there to address the crowd, we are going to get videos online of them booing him like crazy?
I don't know.
I don't know.
It's still a loyal fan base.
Something that's notable as well, I think, Ben, that me and you, and we were talking about it in the fantasy chat actually today, is look at this in comparison to what Sports Interactive have done today. Like, they've come out and said, look, people have pre-ordered it. You're going to get your money back. We don't think the game's ready. We're loyal to our fan base. We don't want to provide an experience that we don't think is at the level, the standard that we've set over so many years. We're going to just push it back further. And me, who has been a loyal fan to that franchise, has gone, okay, fair enough. I'd rather you do that. And I thank you for your honesty. It's a bit of a stinker, but thank you for your honesty.
Listen, can I give another perfect example? And this is, I cover this with Sold separately. There's a company called Powertown Wrestling.
Yeah.
And they released their first series and they had preliminary figures and people tested it and there were issues. They recalled the entire line and redid them to correct the mistake. Yeah, it was delayed, but they were done right. And like the series 2 that they're doing now for certain ones, there's a delay. They're like, listen, there's a delay. We're giving you a free figure now. You pick whatever one you want. Like, you're doing things to appease the audience. And that's something AEW should have been smart enough to know this may not work out. We should do something, get ahead of it.
PR must have a headache right now.
Oh yeah,
big headache.
They have a PR team.
Well, that might be the problem.
And if they do have a PR team, I think there might need to be quite a few question marks to them for having done quite a few things over the last couple of years.
Perhaps.
But let's now move on, shall we? Let's move on to something a little bit more positive. Numero One says he agrees with us. Sean Ellis hates AEW. I think it's
is that a new comment or just overall?
Yeah, it's just their summary.
Overall, isn't it? Really?
But I believe everyone's pro TNA barbecue.
Yeah,
great deal. For $5.99, you can just have a barbecue with tons of.
They should have paid you to plug that, man. They should have paid you to plug that.
Honestly, I think we've sold them a lot of these tickets. But anyway, let's talk about John Cena, shall we? Because CM Punk the other day jumped on the Good Guy, Bad Guy podcast on ESPN, and he was asked about his thoughts with the Royal Rumble, and he basically said that he thought John Cena should have won it. He would have booked John Cena to win it. He was happy for Jey Uso at the fact he did win it. But if it was him, he would have had John Cena win it by eliminating him, because at this point in his career, he thinks there's more to him losing than winning. Anthony, I'm going to chuck this one to you first. What are your thoughts? Should Cena have won?
No. I think Jey was the right call because, like I said when we did the Royal Rumble review, Jey was unexpected. None of us had Jey. But Jey definitely deserved it. Like I at no point did I look at that going, oh, he didn't deserve this. The Cena one, if he would have won and you would have given him the Mania match, if he would have won and got 17, doesn't that kill the momentum for the entire final run? Because the whole thing is about his chase of getting 17. If he would have lost, I mean, to me, I think you can get more out of Jey because Cena didn't really need the Rumble win. He's won 2. If he would have won another, he would have been tied with Austin at 3. So the irony of that is the fact that he'd be tied for the Rumble, but he's going to try to break Flair's record of 16 of his and Flair's 16 record. But I think Jey was the right call. I mean, after Mania and after this is done, my opinion may change, seeing how this plays out. But because there was shock value in this, and it wasn't just like, it's not like they gave it to Tozawa. It's not like Tozawa won the Rumble. It's somebody that earned it, that the crowd's behind. It's very much the yes movement, the last year's whoa movement. He's got the audience. So I don't have a problem with Jey being the one who won it.
No, I do agree with you there. Sean Ellis agrees too. He says it was a great decision and he's agreeing with you. Numero One says, as huge of a John Cena fan as he is, he should not have won the Rumble. And of course, he did say about the Elimination Chamber before, but somebody else who is a huge John Cena fan is Jordy. Jordy, should he have won the Rumble?
No. No, I honestly don't think he should. Listen, I mean, I was on the watch along, and my reaction to Jey winning it says it all. I was speechless. That doesn't happen very often. These guys will have come to know, and now they've got to know me a little bit. And if you actually watch my reaction of Jey compared to my reaction to Charlotte winning, it speaks volumes. I'm so happy that Jey won, because what they've done is they've given it to the person who is selling the most merch, who is getting the biggest reaction from the crowd. And that's a great thing to see, especially for the people that are currently working within the roster, I think. I was reading CM Punk's kind of statement. I was like, I'm interested to see why he thinks Cena should have won. And then when he said, I think he should have eliminated me, I was like, all right, maybe that's why he thinks John should have won, because I think CM Punk perhaps wanted, that's the most CM Punk thing ever. It's like, I think John should have had this moment with me. It's like, okay, cool. Okay, Phil. Listen, they're long-term rivals. It would have been a fantastic moment, but I don't think it'd, maybe in a couple of years' time when we're looking back at this, I don't think it would have been a bigger moment. And I agree with you guys. I don't think John should win if he's going to, I loved what he did after the show. The whole like, what's best for business is that I main event WrestleMania. That's interesting. That's thrown a bit of a curveball to me. I still don't think he's going to, and I think that's why he said it. I don't think he's going to win the Chamber either, and I think he'll maybe come out after the Chamber and say, "Look, I thought I could get back to a title shot by only being part-time, and obviously that's not the case, and he'll come back and do a lot more dates and put a run together." I think he will win the title. I think it might end up being through the Money in the Bank briefcase. He came back and he said he announced his farewell tour in Toronto and said, well, we're going to be back here for Money in the Bank. I think it could be a possibility that he actually wins the briefcase. And I don't think he'll cash in the way we know, though. I think he'll call his shot and make it a bigger deal and make it a main event of a PLE. But no, I don't agree with CM Punk on this one. I do agree with him that I'm happy for Jay, but I don't think Cena should have won it.
Fair enough. Yeah, I do agree with you. I think we're all pretty much on the same page with that one. But we now need to talk about the weekend preview because for once, guys, there's no PLE. There's not a pay-per-view. There's not a Saturday night's main event. There's not even a New Japan show.
You know why? There's a Super Bowl. There's a Super Bowl. They're not going to
get a small thing going on Sunday.
Yes.
Go Birds!
Oh no. But let's talk about the weekend because we still do have a couple of shows to talk about. Firstly, Friday Night SmackDown. Now, there are currently two things announced for this. Firstly, Jey Uso is going to quote unquote yeet back to SmackDown. Okay. And also, Charlotte Flair is going to be on SmackDown as well. So basically, the two Royal Rumble winners are going to appear. In addition to that, we have a couple of qualifying matches which have just been announced for tonight's episode of SmackDown. The first one, so they're both Elimination Chamber qualifying matches. The first one is Bianca Belair versus Pippa Niven. And the second one is Alexa Bliss versus Candice LeRae. So, wow. Two big women's matches tonight on SmackDown that has literally just been announced this minute. But talking about AEW Collision on Saturday night, we have a Harley Cameron concert. Bandito will be making his in-ring return against Brian Keefe. Kyle Fletcher will be taking on Mark Briscoe. Thunder Rosa will be taking on Penelope Ford. And in a 9-man tag team match, we have Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, and Roderick Strong facing Shane Taylor and the Infantry versus Daniel Garcia, Matt Menard, and Angelo Parker. So a couple of fun shows. Jordy, I'll pass this to you first. What are you most excited for?
Oh, I'm excited to see what Jay has to say to Cody. And to be honest, I'm excited to hear from Cody after the Royal Rumble because he looked like a very, very angry man. This could be the face-off, obviously, with Charlotte and Tiffy as well. So there is a plenty to look forward to. But now you've said that Alexa Bliss is wrestling again on SmackDown, that's probably the thing I'm looking forward to most, because obviously we got to see her a little bit in the Rumble, but to see her actually back in singles action, that's huge. I'm very happy about that. And to be back on the show with Bianca, who, I mean, last time they were around, that was who they were feuding together. I think Bianca was champion, and it was at the Royal Rumble, so probably 2 years since then. So obviously they're not against each other right now, but to see them back on the same show, that's interesting. It did make me laugh. I have to explain myself, by the way. I heard you say Alexa Bliss versus Candice LeRae, two huge women's matches, and I was like, they've got an average height of about 5'1", them two. So it was just funny to hear you say that after. But no, I'm very much looking forward to that SmackDown show, to be honest. It might not be a PLE, but it is a 3-hour SmackDown. And not, I'll be honest, I haven't been looking forward to them as much. I think SmackDown belongs 2 hours, but tonight does look like a pretty stacked card.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, to be honest with you. It's weird. They are still announcing less than when it was 2 hours, and it feels like they are doing less than when it was 2 hours. Yeah. I'm not sold on these 3-hour SmackDowns, but Anthony, what are you sold on this weekend? What are you excited for?
Honestly, it's the Super Bowl, but since you're requiring
That's more wrestling.
You're requiring me. Hey, listen, WWE's bringing a custom belt to the show. It definitely counts. No, but in all seriousness, no. Of those, probably SmackDown. Even though the past several weeks with the 3 hours, I get to about like 9:30 and then go, all right, so there's like a half an hour left. I went, crap, there's a whole nother hour and a half. It's not holding my interest at 3 hours. But I'm hoping it'll be interesting. Anytime they do the Rumble stuff, the typical MO is that, they have the winners going, all the brands going, oh, am I going to challenge you? Am I going to challenge you? Other than last year where I absolutely loved Cody straight up pointing to Roman in the box. And I thought that added to that moment last year because it's never been done. Just the visual I thought was great, but you kind of know Jay's going Gunther. I'd be very shocked if he didn't. But I do want to see the interaction because, again, we saw Cody's interaction with Punk, and Punk warned him, listen, that belt's corrupting you. The pressure's corrupting you. So the Cody that Jay is going to see is not going to be the typical Cody, probably, that he's used to. His former tag partner, his media call partner. You're not going to get that. You are going to get a darker and sinister Cody, as we are on the road to Homelander Cody, which it's a matter of when, not if, I think. But I do think it's after Mania. But we are very much close to that destination, is my thought. But I have a lot of interest, more interest in SmackDown than I do Collision, to be honest.
Fair enough. I mean, to be fair, there's not that much happening on Collision, but I'm sure it'll be a fun couple of hours for Collision too. But we got quite a few comments here.
Yes.
Firstly, happy late birthday, Rosario. Secondly, happy birthday for Monday, Sean Ellis, who says it's his birthday on Monday, but he's celebrating it on Super Bowl Sunday,
Smart move.
hopefully with a Chiefs win.
No, hopefully not.
But so Numu wants to say the only way anybody can outdo the Super Bowl is if we get the Invisible Man versus the Invisible Stan. Alexa and Bianca will win, and we will get a double turn between Tiffany and Charlotte. Really adding to the intrigue about all of that. I mean, perhaps so.
Are we still in the transfer window?
Yeah,
I don't even know.
And I don't.
So
I hate it.
When's deadline day?
So I am going
I've wanted it, Jordy.
I am going to go out on a limb here and think Andrade's going to Raw. I'm not going to say why, but I believe Andrade will be transferring to Raw.
No, they're still friends, I think. They're still like reposting each other's stuff.
Again, I believe Andrade's going to Raw.
We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. Wouldn't be a bad move for him, in all honesty. All things aside, I don't think it'd be a bad move for him.
I mean, listen, a feud with Penta would not exactly be a bad thing.
Him just being showcased on Netflix, I think, would be a good thing for WWE as well. He's got a very high impact style that could turn some heads, I think. And Penta would be a great feud.
Yeah, we definitely need to see more from him, but we also definitely, to your point, Jordy, need to see an end to this transfer window. We need a deadline day. We need it to be wrapped up, because right now it has been directionless. It has, quite frankly, been... The thing is, obviously, I don't think we've been complaining about it as much because at least the TV product's still being good compared to when the wild card was going on. The TV product was just straight up bad. But it is just about as logical and as senseless, in fact, maybe more senseless than the wild card rule, because at least that was an ongoing thing, whereas this is a transfer window, which everyone's still just flip-flopping.
They've never stayed in the lane when they've done these brand splits. For like 5 minutes they will, and then it's just randomly like, hey, here's Cody on Raw. Why? Like but they would do this, and now at least they have a title for this thing, transfer window. But are you just doing this? Are you going to do a draft? Like
I think I preferred the draft to a transfer window because.
But is this?
No, I agree. I agree. Yeah, I don't know. They've not made that clear at all.
Yeah, I think what actually happened is this. I think SmackDown went to 3 hours, whereas Raw went down by half an hour. and they were like, okay, we need to, even out the rosters a bit. So did this transfer window to temporarily do that. And I think for whatever reason, they're trying to reshuffle around some WrestleMania plans. And until those WrestleMania plans are locked in, I think they're going to keep this transfer window open just so they can get as many people on the card as possible in programs, which makes sense. But it doesn't change the fact that it's nonsensical.
You also have the weird situation, which I don't think this is a good move, where they're going to change whether SmackDown's 3 hours or 2 hours at different points of the year. That doesn't really help matters either. You need some consistency here.
Well, I think what would be fun is if they're going to do a transfer window. What makes a part of the transfer window so exciting in football or soccer for the American crowd is it's a transfer budget. You have a budget. You have a certain amount of money. You see what I mean? You have a certain amount of money to spend. Yeah, so it's like if they had a certain amount of budget and it turns out, okay, yeah, Nick Aldis has blasted all of his budget on signing this person, and then you could actually run a storyline where one of the GMs runs one of the brands into the ground and they've got no money. You know what I mean? I don't know. If you're going to do a transfer window, just make it a bit more exciting. And the brand split used to be so much fun where it was SmackDown versus Raw. Make them not like each other, these brands. I loved a bit of bragging rights. Like there was a time where I was excited to watch a PLE that was just the brands having a tag match with no belts involved, just for bragging rights to see who was the better brand. And now, they just, when it gets too close to a PLE, it's just like, hey, we're all just going to show up wherever we want.
They literally had a pay-per-view called Bragging Rights.
Yeah, I know. It was great. It was great. I loved it.
Oh, it's honestly, I mean, I want to see that now, though. Find out that Adam Pearce has accidentally blown his budget on just CM Punk.
John Cena.
Ava's tried to use the in-game editor to make more funds. NXT gets a financial takeover from The Rock.
Yeah, I was about to say The Rock. Yeah, that would be great. That would be great. Brilliant.
But Clark saying, should the flu's going round the Eagles? Tough break.
Now go
We'll
Birds.
see what happens, Clark.
I know nothing other than go Birds. Caw.
Oh gosh, but that does bring us to the end of the show, guys. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Jordy, and thank you to everybody who's been commenting along. We really do appreciate it. We will be back at the same time, same place tomorrow to talk to you guys a little bit about Friday Night SmackDown. See you guys then. Peace.